Hello friend, how are you? Welcome to Tripan Study Center. Today we are going to do the chapter of social science and highlighting each and every point of it. Let's see what is our topic today. Governance at the union level. There is a most important chapter here. But first point, this chapter, the president. The president is important here, governance at the union level here. Then important. The legacy of the below to the showing the Republic Day parade be celebrated 26 Jan as a Republic Day every year. India is now as the Republic. Do you know why? It is because our head of the state, the President of India, is elected. It is not so in the Great Britain, and where the head of state happen to be either to the king or the queen of the office. There are this is important here, President. And the next topic is important here, process of election of president. The president is indirectly elected by the electoral colleges, which is the consist of the elected member of the both houses of parliament as well as the state legislative assemblies. Moreover, they elected to the members of legislative assemblies of their union territory of Delhi and Pondicherry. It is now that Pondicherry also participate in this election. The voting is why the secret ballot and she is elected according to the system of proportional representation by means of the single the transferable vote. That's important process of election of the president here. On your screen, there is a most important here process of election of the president. There are president of India, secret ballot, and there is a participant members here. The member of Lok Sabha, member of Rajya Sabha, member of Legislative Assembly of State and Union Territory of Delhi and Pondicherry. There is a most important diagram on your screen. There is a election of the president here, and there is important. The next point is the most important here, qualification for election as the president. That is the most important. In order to be qualified for elections as a president, a person must be a citizen of India and have a complete to the age of 35 years and be qualified that began to elected as a member of House of People, Lok Sabha, and not hold any office of profit under the government of India or any state government or under any local authorities and another authorities of the said as a government. The next year term of office. The president is elected for a term of 5 years. But even after the expire of their term, she is may be continue to be hold office until his or successor enter to the office. There is a provision for the re-election of person who is the holding or who has held the office as a president. A vacancy in the office of president may be causing in any of following way. The first year in the event of his or her death, if she resign and if she is removed from office by impeachment, and impeachment is the revolution of remove the president for his or her unconstitutional act or need, and to be adopted by the special majority of vote in both the house of parliament as provided in the constitution. In the event of the occurrence of any vacancy in office of the president, the vice president act of president until their date on which their new president is elected and entered upon his or her office. But the vice president can be act as a president for not more than 6 months here. The amendment is allowances as a proposal of the president are determined by a law passed by the parliament. The president get a monthly pay of the 10,000 as per the constitution. It is raised to the 50,000 in 1998 and again to be rupees of 1,50,000 in 2008. She also is the other pair of allowances as alive in the official residence and popularly known as the Rajpati Bhavan in New Delhi. There is a most important here. On your screen, there is a Rashtrapati Bhavan on Delhi. There is a most important here, Rashtrapati Bhavan. The next year, power of the president is important. As we have seen earlier, the president is the head of the state. It is the highest public office in the country. All the executive action of the government of India are carried out her name. The president has a flowing power. Our next topic is the most important here, power, executive power first of all here. The Constitution of India is based the executive power of the Union in the President. He is appointed to Prime Minister and who is the leader of the majority party or group of parties, having majority in the lower house, the Lok Sabha, and she also appoint the other member of Council of Minister on the recommendation of Prime Minister. Since the President is the formal head of the administrations, all executive action of the Union must be expressed to be taken in the name of the President. The executive power of the President include the power of appointment of governor in the state. The Earnings is a Journal of India. There are competitors of the editors of Journal of India. There is a ambassador and the High Commissioner as well as the administrators of Union Territory. She also appointed the chairman and member of the Union Public Service Commission as well as the Chief Justice and Judge of the Supreme Court and the High Court. Moreover, the President is the Supreme Commander of the Army Force and appointed the chiefs of three wings, Army, Air Force and Navy. The President has a power to remove a minister, the Attorney General of India, Governor of a state, the chairman and the member of the Union Public Service Commission on the report of Supreme Court, the Chief Justice and Judge of the Supreme Court and High Court, and the Chief Election Commission and the Election Commissioner on the addresses of Parliament. All the diplomatics work in the conducted and all the international treaties and the agreement are inaugurated and the concluded in his or her name. This is important power and removal power here. The next power here, legislative powers. The President is an integral part of the Parliament and in this capacity she enjoys the many legislative powers. The President addresses a Parliament every year at the commencement of first sessions and other each journalist election to be Lok Sabha. She is a someone and prorogates there is a sessions of Parliament and can dissolve the Lok Sabha on the advice of Council of Minister. Without his or her assent, no bill can be become a law or on the act. If the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha fail to be agree on the passage of any bill, the President can be called a joint session to be resolved their issue. Whenever Parliament is not in a session, the President on the request of Prime Minister can issue an ordinance which has the force of a law. The next power here, financial powers. In addition of the above mentioned executive and legislative power, the President enjoys the content of financial power. No money bill can be introduced in a Lok Sabha without his or her prior recommendations in order to votes. All the money bills are initiated in the Lok Sabha only with the assent of President. You must have heard about their budget. It is a document which is a content to the detail of annual income and expenditure of Indian government. The President gives his consent for it to be laid before the Lok Sabha before the beginning of every financial year. There is the most important power here, financial power. And the next power here, judicial power. The President of India as a head of state and contain a special judicial prerogatives and she is a power to be grant pardons or reduce the sentence of a person convicted to the offense. For example, she can suspended a commentary prayers of the sentence of the criminal convicted by a court of law. The next point here, the President and emergency provision here. We have discussed so far power of President of India that exercises to the during the normal period. Over and above this power, she has important power that exercise during the abnormal situation. These are known as the emergency power. The Constitution has made a provision for this power to meet the three specific extraordinary and abnormal situation arising in the country, and this situation may be a war or external aggressions or army rebellions, and failure of the constitutional machinery in any state, and the financial crisis. There is a most important president and the emergency provision here. The next year, war external aggression of armies is rebellion. This is an important point here. A proclamation of the emergency is made of president. If she is certified that the security of India or any part thereof is threatened by war. External aggression and army rebellions, however, there are precedent issues such as a proclamations only when a decision of union cabinet. The prime minister and the minister of the cabinet rank. To be that effect is communicated to her, she had and the written. Every proclamation is to be led to before two house of parliament, and if it is not approved within a 1 month, it is automatically a case of operate. With the proclamation of emergency, the union government can give a direction to the state government in the respect of their executive power and parliament. It may be assumed regulative power of the state legislature. The president may be also order the suspension of the enforcement of fundamental rights here. The next year, position of president. This is important. Have you observed that when to the functioning of union government is a discussion either in the parliament or in the newspaper or on television? The role of prime minister and the ministers are often discussed. But we have seen earlier that a constitution vests all the executive power in the president. She also has extensive emergency power. Does this mean that a president is all powers? Is a no. In reality, the president is a nominal executive or constitutional head of the state. No doubt that the government is run in her and his name, but according to the Indian Constitution, the president has exercises his her power on the head of advice of counseling of minister and headed up by the prime minister. And that is not a simple advice but is a self binding. This is important here. This indicates that a prime minister and council minister are the real rule in the government. All the decisions are taken by the council minister headed by the prime minister. The president has a right to be informed of those decisions, and similarly their emergency provision also do not grant any real power to the president. Under the Constitution of India, President occupy the same position as a king and queen under the British Constitution. He is a head of the state but not the executive. He is a represent their nation but does not rule the nation. He is a symbol of the nation. He is a place in the administration in that ceremonials head on was seal a nation and discussion are made known. There is a Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar in the Constitution Assembly. There is a most important rule here. In the light of the above statements, some constitutional experts believe that the president can be compared with the rubber stamp. But this is a conclusion is also not true. Their president has been given to task of reserving as a protecting and defending of constitution. He is a custodian of the democratic process as inherent in the constitution. In a contrarian political situation, the president can play a decisive role in the formation of government. There has been to some occasions when the president has asserted his or her opposition. However, in a practice, the president acts as a nominal and constitutional head. It has a right to be started that in our constitutional system, the president enjoys the highest honor, dignity, and prestige, but not the real authorities. Next topic is the most important here, the prime minister. Prime minister is the most important post here. You know who was the first prime minister of India? Yes, it was a Chacha Nehru. That is a Jawaharlal Nehru. How do you think they felt then taking up this is an important post? Remember that India at the time had just again to the independent from a Britain rules. But where is the challenge of the face? Let us see from the open war written in this book, The Discovery of India. According to the discovery of India, India is not a poor country. It is abundantly supplied with everything that make a country rich. And as the people are very poor, India has a resource as well as the intelligence, skill and capacity to be abundant, advance is rapidly. He added to be must aim to be equality. Not only must equal opportunities be given to be all, but special opportunity to be educational, economics and culture growth must be given to be backward groups so as to enable them to the catch up with those ahead of them. Any such attempt to be open the doors of opportunity to all Indian will be released energies and ability to transform of country with the amazing speed. Nehru felt a great sense of responsibility to take the country forward because a prime minister is had a major role to play. If you listen to your news on the television or radio, you will find even today that we hear about the prime minister much more frequently than any other office under the union government. In fact, the prime minister is the most important functionary at the center. If you go through the constitutions, you maybe get a different impressions because all the power are mentioned as a power of president. But one provisions turn to the situation. According to the constitution, there shall be a council of ministers with the prime minister at the head to be added to the advice the president who shall act according to the advice. In fact, the president is bounded to exercise all the powers scheduled according to the advice of Council of Ministers, which is headed by their prime minister. It is a prime minister who is the real head of the union executive. The prime minister is appointed by the president, but the president has to invite only the person to be a prime minister, who is the leader of majority in the Lok Sabha, and earlier the person to be invited used to be the leader of only one political party as a commandings, a view to majority in the Lok Sabha. But with the initiations of the phases of coalitions, she may be a leader of a group of more than one political party. In the change situation, the president invites the person who is the leader led by the political party and that has the largest number of seats in the Lok Sabha and who receive the support of other political party to manage the need of majority. Besides began to leader of majority in the Lok Sabha to be a prime minister. The person has to be a member of parliament. If she is not a member at the time of appointment and she has to acquire it within 6 months from the state of his appointment as a PM. The next year function of the prime minister here. It is not interesting to be note that a constitution does not make any specific provision for the power of prime minister. Third, she is the most powerful functionary of union government. The only provision in the constitution is that the president shall exercise his or her power on the aid and advise the council of ministers with the prime minister at the head, and that advice will be a binding. But in a practice, it is the prime minister who is make the council of ministers. It is on his her recommendation that a president appointment a member of the council minister and distribute of portfolios among them. She is provides over to the meeting of the cabinet and a communicated the decision of president. The prime minister act as a link between to the president and council of minister. If due to any reason he sees the submit her and the resignations, the entire council of ministers stand dissolved. As and when the necessity arise, she may be recommended to the president that is the Lok Sabha to be dissolved and a fresh general election be held. In fact, the prime minister is not only the leader of majority party or the leader of the parliament, but she is also the leader of the nation, and her office is their office of power, well that a president is the office of the honor. Respect and dignity, the prime minister is the ex office of chairman of the planning commission as well as of the national development council. and she is represented the nation at the international conference as the head of government. On your screen, there is a most important picture here. Member of the Union Council of Minister after taking oath of 2009. There is a most important. This time, Manmohan Singh is the Prime Minister of India, and Pratibha Patil is a President of India. The next year, the Union Council of Minister. As you have noted about the Constitution of India state that there shall be a council of minister with the prime minister at the head to be about to advise their president who shall in the exercise of his function act accordance with such advice provided that a president may be required to council of minister to reconsider such a device, either generally or otherwise, and the presidential shall act of accordance with the advice tendered after such a consideration. This is important. The members of Council of Ministers are appointed by the President on the recommendation of Prime Minister. The Council of Ministers has three categories of minister: Cabinet Minister, Minister of State, and Deputy Minister. These ministers work as a team under the leadership of the Prime Minister. The minister hold office during the pleasure of President, but they cannot be removed so long as they have to support a majority in the Lok Sabha. In fact, according to their constitution, ministers are collectively responsible to be Lok Sabha. If the Lok Sabha is as a non-confident motion, the entire council of ministers, including PM, has the resign. Or no confidence motion in the legislative motion both there is a members of the Lok Sabha and expressing lack of trust in the council of ministers, and that is why it is sad that is a minister swim of sing together. And the next year, regarding the function of the council minister, these are the same as was the prime minister. The proceedings of the cabinet and council minister are kept secret. The council of minister is a large body of ministers. We have seen during the recent year the top category known as the minister of cabinet rank are about 20 to 25, and they hold the charge of important departments. And then there is a group of ministers called ministers of state, and some of them hold an independent charge of ministries while the other are attached to be cabinet minister. Yet another category of minister known as the deputy ministers are attached to be cabinet minister or minister of state. The cabinet meetings is attended only by the minister of cabinet rank, but if need to the ministers of state also may be invited to attend such a meeting. The next year, position of Prime Minister. In the background of the above discussion, it is above there is a Prime Minister occupy a key position in the Union government. She is the principal or spokesperson and defender of the policy of the government in the parliament. The council of ministers function as his her team. The nation look to be him her needed to the policy and programs and required action. All the international agreement and treaties with the other countries are concluded with the consent of Prime Minister. She has a special status both in the government and the parliament. The Prime Minister chooses his team council of ministers very carefully and get the willings is a cooperation from them. However, it is true that is a coalition of government. The Prime Minister has to seek help from like-minded political parties. The experience of the last 10 to 12 years has shown that such as a scenarios, she has to be very resilient and diplomatic. She has to be take a major decision regarding to defense and security of country. She has to the formulate a policy not only for providing better living condition but also to be maintenance a pace friendly relation with their rewarding country. It is because of the fact mentioned above that a prime minister is the keystone of the cabinet arch. There is a most important here. Our next topic is the most important here, the Union Parliament. This is the most important topic here, the Union Parliament. Do you recognize their institution in the illustrations given below? Yes, it is a Parliament House. The legislative branch of Union government is called the Parliament that consists of the president and two houses known as the House of the People, Lok Sabha, and the Council of State, Rajya Sabha. There is two houses here. Are the people here, House of the People of Lok Sabha, and Council of State here, Rajya Sabha. It is important to appreciate that making their president as a part of parliament is a confinement with the principle and traditional of the parliamentaries from a government. We shall now discuss their composition of power and function of both the House of Parliament. On your screen, there is a most important picture here, Parliament House of India. There is a Parliament House of India on your screen. The next topics arrive here, Lok Sabha. Lok Sabha or the House of People is the lower house. The Lok Sabha, the House of the People is the lower house. It is a people's representative body. The members of the Lok Sabha are directly elected by the people of India. The number of its members cannot be exceed of 550. Out of this is a 530 are directly elected by the people of the state, and the remaining 20 members are elected from the union territory. All the citizens who are the 18 year of age and above have the right to be voted and elected to the member of Lok Sabha. According to the Constitution, if there is no member of Anglo-Indian community in the Lok Sabha, the president can be nominated two persons of this community as a member. When the elections are announced, each state and territory is divided into the various territory constituencies based on population, and these are known as the parliamentary constituency here. One representative of Lok Sabha is elected from each of the constituencies. The term of Lok Sabha is a 5 year. The term of Lok Sabha is a 5 year. However, it can be dissolved even earlier by the president. During an emergency, its term can be extended for a period of 1 year. And those who want to be a member of Lok Sabha must be a citizen of India, be of at least of 25 years of age, and not hold on office or profit under the central, state and local government. Should be a poses such as other qualification as may be specified by the law made by the parliament for a time to time. The next year, Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha, the Council of State, is the upper house of Parliament. The maximum number of members of this house cannot be exceeded to 50. There is the most important 250 and cannot be exceeded to 250. Out of these, 238 members are represent the state and union territory, and 12 are the nominated by the President of India. The nominated members are registered to persons in the field of literatures, arts, science, social service. The elected representatives are elected by the state legislative assembly according to the system of proportional representation by the means of single transferable vote. The member of There is a number of members for each state depending on the population of that state. The Rajya Sabha is not subject to the delusions. There is a member of the Rajya Sabha are elected for a 6 year. But there is an agreement according to which one-third of member retire every 2 years and new members are elected. The retiring member can be re-elected to be eligible to be a member of Rajya Sabha. A person must be a citizen of India and be at least 30 years of age. And other qualifications are same as those for a members of Lok Sabha. The sessions of parliament are summoned by the president. There should be not be a gap of more than 6 months between the two sessions. The president that has right to be a prolongs the sessions, and The Lok Sabha can be dissolved by their president, but not the Rajya Sabha, as it is the permanent house of parliament. That's important. And the next year, presiding officer. The Lok Sabha is presided over to the speaker and his absence by the deputy speaker. The members of the Lok Sabha select their speakers and the deputy speaker from among themselves. He maintains order and discipline in the lower house as well as supervise it is a proceeding. He decide who will be speak and for how long. He normally does not be cast has a vote but can be vote in the case of tie. The speaker decided whether a bill is an ordinary or a money bill and his or her decision is a final. Besides, he is a custodian of right and privilege of members. In case of joint sitting of Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, the Speaker of Lok Sabha presides over such meetings. On your screen, the season of the Lok Sabha. There is a most important picture on your screen. Rajya Sabha is a presides over the Vice President of India, who is its ex officio of chairman. The chairman is a vice president is not a member of Rajya Sabha. She is elected by electoral colleges consisting of members of both the House of Parliament. During his or her absence, the House is presided over by the deputy chairman. Like the Speaker of Lok Sabha, the chairman of the Rajya Sabha also does not be normally vote, but in case of tie, she may be exercises their casting of vote here. The next year, function of Parliament. The Parliament is the supreme legislative body. It is a perform function that may be characterized by flow. First of all, here legislative function. There is an important here legislative function. The Parliament is a law-making body. It is legislatives on the subject of mentioned in the Union list and the concurrent list by the Constitution. If there is a clash between the Union government and the state government regarding any concurrent subject, the central law will be a prevails. Beside, if there is any subject not mentioned in any list. Now, as a residues, subject is come under the judication of the Parliament. An ordinary bill can be reduced in any of two houses. If a bill is passed by the Lok Sabha, it is sent to the Rajya Sabha, which may be passed the same or may be suggested amendment in the bill. If the disagreement between the two houses continually, it has to be resolved in a joint sitting of the two houses. In the joint sitting, Lok Sabha has a upper hand with a 550 member over to Rajya Sabha, which has only a maximum of 250 members. Till date, there has been to only three joining sitting of the both the houses. Once of the bill is passed by the both the houses, it is sent to the president for his her an assent, and with his her assent, it's become a law or an act. That's important here. The next power here, executive function. In a parliamentary system, there is a close relationship between the legislatives and executives. As discussed above, the real executives, the Council of Ministers is collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha, which can dislodges a ministry by passing a non-confidence motions against it. In 1999, Atal Bihari Vajpayee as a government lost the confidence motion in the Lok Sabha and it is resigned. That's the most important example here. However, both the houses of parliament maintain their control over the counseling of minister through the several other ways such as by asking question and supplementary questions here. The first hour of every working day of parliament related to the question hour in which their ministers has to be answer the question arise by the members by discussing and passing motion, calling the attention motion, adjustment motion are ensured motion can be moved and policy of the government can be debated and utilizing. There's an important part here. And the next year, by the expressing lack of confidence, the Lok Sabha can express its lack of confidence in the executive by disapproving their budget or money bill or even on ordinary bill. There is important here. And the next year, financial function. Let's see financial function here. The next year, financial function. The Parliament of India has been entrusted with their performance of important financial function. It is the custodians of the public money. It control the entire purses of the union government. Its intention from the time to time money to the government to be enable it to run the administrations and effective and successful. The parliament may be passed, reduce or reject the demand for a grants are presented to it by their government. No taxes can be collected and no expenditures can be made without the approval of parliament. And there are, however, content limitation of Rajya Sabha. There are first year money bill. Money bill cannot be introduced in the Rajya Sabha. It has no power either to reject or amended a money bill. It can only make a recommendation on the money bill. If the Rajya Sabha, along with the recommendation, if any, does not return it to be Lok Sabha within the 14 days, the bill is deemed to be has been passed by the both the houses. As regard their annual budget, annual function statement, it is represented in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha may only discuss it but can not stop it from becoming law. That is the most important first point here. The next year, judicial function. This is an important part here, judicial function. The parliament is empowered to be prescribe the number of judges of the Supreme Court by law. It is also authorized to be established a common high court for two or more states as well as the constitution to the high court even the union territory. A chief justice or judge of the Supreme Court of any high court can be removed from his or her office by the president only after on impeachment process both the houses of parliament. This is important judiciary function here. And the next year, mysterious function. This is important here. Mysterious function. The parliament has the power to remove the president and the vice president via a special majority of votes. And this process is called as a impeachment. There is a called impeachment. It has a power to amend their constitution and contain the part of the constitution can be named by a simple majority and contain other require two-thirds of majority. Some other part of constitution can be amended with a special majority of parliament and the approval of the legislatures of half of the states. There is a most important power here. And let's come here competitive position of both the house of parliament. Let's see competitive position of the both houses of parliament. The next topic is important competitive position of the both the houses of parliament here. In a parliamentary system, the lower house play a more important role. According in our country, also the Lok Sabha is more powerful and effective. The flowing points are important for understanding the competitive position of both the houses. First of all here, Lok Sabha is directly elected and the true representative of people of India. Rajya Sabha, on the other hand, is indirectly elected. Moreover, Rajya Sabha is permanent body, whereas the Lok Sabha is elected for a definite period of 5 years. Its tenure can be increasing and it can be dissolved even earlier than the expire of the term. And the next point here, in case of an ordinary bill, both the houses have a equal powers. But if the difference between the both the houses continues and a joint session is a convened, there is a Lok Sabha and get an upper hand as it is a membership is more than the double of that of Rajya Sabha. In respect of having a control over the constitutional minister, once again, the Lok Sabha is more effective. Rajya Sabha can have some control by the debatings on the policy and programs and utilizing the government. But only the Lok Sabha has the two power to be passed a no confidence motion, which if done, the counseling of minister resign. And the next year, with regard, there is a constitutional amendment, election of the president and the vice president, and impeachment or removal of president, vice president, chief justice, and judge of Supreme Court and High Court. Both the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha have almost similar power. Whereas in the financial matter, the Lok Sabha has an upper hand. Lok Sabha here upper hand, and the only Rajya Sabha that is a create a new all India service and declare a subject in the state list to be a national important. This is the most important point here. Lok Sabha has an upper hand and the Rajya Sabha is a lower hand. There's an important point here. In a view of the above comparisons, Lok Sabha is defined it more powerful than the Rajya Sabha, but it will not be appreciated to be stated that the Rajya Sabha is not only the second chamber but also a second chamber. There is a secondary chamber is important here, and we have seen how important of role or Rajya Sabha also plays, and there are contain of function which only Rajya Sabha can perform. This is an important point here. The next point here, impact of union government on citizen and their daily life. The union government formulate and implement many national level programs and schemes which has on impact upon our quality of life. And this program include many in education and child care, such as the integrated child development schemes mean ICDS, and providing to the Anglo-Variants for child nutrition and care. Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan means SSA for universalizing elementary education, and the Sastraya Madhyamik Shiksha. Sastraya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan means RMSA for universalization of secondary education, and some other union government program at the National Rural Health Mission, and total sanitation is a campaigns as the MNRGA, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, MNREGA, and Indian Awas Yojana, Indra Awas Yojana, etc. This is the most important for their daily to daily life of citizen on the impact of union government here. Our next topic is the most important here, the Supreme Court. We have mentioned in the beginning of the lesson that the Supreme Court represents the union's judiciary, but the structure and functioning of the judiciary branch is different from those of executive and legislative branches. Do you have some idea or experience of judiciary action? You maybe have heard it at some point of time that a case that began in the lower court was considered by the courts at the district level, then by the High Court, and ultimately by the Supreme Court. This happened because India has a unified judiciary. It means that there is a houses of the courts at the highest level of which is the Supreme Court. Then at the state level, there are high courts, and at the district and still lower level, there are subordinate courts here. On your screen, there is a most important picture here, Supreme Court of India. There is a most beautiful and important Supreme Court of India here. As provided in the Constitution, the Supreme Court of India consists of Chief Justice and other judges. Was the number is prescribed by the Parliament from time to time. In 1950, there was a Chief Justice and there was 7 judges. But the number of judges continued to increasing as per the need. The Supreme Court at the present consists of Chief Justice and 30 judges. This is important. A Chief Justice and 30 judges is extra. The Chief Justice and other judges of Supreme Court are appointed by the President of India. There is also important point here. For appointment the Chief Justice of India, there are other judges of Supreme of High Court may be consulted. Usually, there are most judge in the Supreme Court is the appointment as a Chief Justice. For the appointment of other judges of Supreme Court, the Chief Justice has to be consulted. Usually, the Chief Justice himself consult a collegius of the 4 senior most judges, and all of them need to agree for any is a candidate to be recommended for the appointment of judges. And the most important here, a person can be appointed as a judges of the Supreme Court only if there is the most important here is the citizen of India, must has been at least a judges of a high court or of 2 or more such a court in a session for at least 5 years. And the next year must has been an advocate of high court or of the 2 or more such a courts in a session for at least 10 years. And is in their opinion of President and jurisdiction. Judges of Supreme Court holded office till they attain their age of 65 years. But they may be removed from officially by on order of the President. This is important here. 65 years is at age of here. But America is a difference. There is a all life judges on the court. This is important. And there is a important also here addressing to the move for official by order by the President pass after addressing by the each house of Parliament support by a special majority on ground of approval, misbehavior and incapacity. This is important here. This is important. Remove from official on by the order of President pass after address by each house of Parliament supported by the special majority on the ground approval to the misbehavior of incapacity. And this is known as the impeachment procedure. There is impeachment procedure here. No Chief Justice or Judge of Supreme Court has been to the impeached so far. This is important here. No Chief Justice and Judges of Supreme Court has been impeached so far. A judge who have served to the Supreme Court is barred from pleadings in any court within the territory of India after the retirement. And the next year, the judication of Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has 3 types of judication here. First of all here, original, appellate and advisory. This is the most important. And first point here, original judication here. The Supreme Court alone has the authority to be here directly contain a case. And these are debt between to the union government and 1 or more state governments. The next year, debt between to 2 or more states. And the next year, debt between to the government of India and 1 or more state on the one side and 1 or more state on the other side. The next year, appellate judications here. This is an important point. The power of a superior high court to be heard and decided appeals against the judgment of the lower court is called appellate judications here. The Supreme Court is a court of appeal for a constitutional, civil and criminal cases. It can be heard to appeal against the judgment of the High Court. It also has the power to review its own judgment. It may in its own dedications and granted special leaves to be appeal against any judgment or order delivered or passed by any court or tribunal within the territory of India. Moreover, on appeal may be come to the Supreme Court in any criminal case. If the High Court certifies that a case is a fit for appeal to be Supreme Court, and the special appeal power has become a handly weapons in the hand of court to be review the decision determining of election and the labor and industry tribunals. Important point. And the next year, advisory judications here. The Supreme Court has a special advisory judications in a matters which may be specifically we are referred to be it by the President of India. If at any time it is appealed to be President that a question of law or fact has arisen or in the likely to be arise, which is of such a public important that it is urgent to obtain the opinion of Supreme Court on it, and he she may be referred it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court may be after such a hearing as it is a thing fit. Report to be President is opinion thrown. The report on the opinion of the Supreme Court is of course not a binding on the President. Similarly, there is a complaisance for the court to be give its advice. This is important. The Supreme Court is a court of record. The record of Supreme Court in a matter of interpretations of the law or of the Constitution have to be accepted when there is a produce before the lower court. Besides the above mentioned judication, there are few more special function of the Supreme Court of India, and these are the special function here. First here, gradients of Constitution. As the interpreter of the Constitution, the Supreme Court has the power to protect and defend the Constitution. If the court finds that any law or executive order is against the Constitution, the same can be declared unconstitutional or invalid. Similarly, the Supreme Court also acts as the custodian and protector of fundamental right. If any citizen feels that his her fundamental right has been to infringement, he she may be moved to the Supreme Court directly for the protection of his her fundamental rights. The right to be constitutional demands empower the Supreme Court to be act as the guardians of Constitution. There is a most important point here of guardians of Constitution here. And the next year, judicial review here. The Supreme Court of India has their power to examine there is a validity of law or executive order. The Supreme Court has the powers to be interpret the Constitution and through his it's assume their power of judication review here. And the next year, judicial activism here. That's important. Judicial activism has been a benefit as a innovative interruptions of constitution by the court, and this has often been to the utilized as the judiciary and taking over to the power of the legislature. But in India, it has been enjoy support from the public because it has concentrated on giving their disadvantage the success to justice. It used the instrument of public interest litigations, mean PIL, public interest litigations here, and which interest litigation any person can be bearing a petition about their problems before the court and not just a person affected by the problem. And PIL has often been used on behalf of people who are poor or disadvantaged and do not have the means to approach the court. With the judicial appealism on PIL, court has given a judgment on pollution, the need for the uniform civil code, and evacuations of unauthorized of buildings and stopping the child labor in their dangerous occupation and other issue. There's a most important issue. This topic was till this. We will be do their next topic in the next part. If you like it, then please like, share, subscribe, and share the video as a much as a possible. Do not think, subscribe and save in your mobile. Thank you.